Leo's hand shot up and clutched mine so hard it hurt. His little fingers were ice, his voice barely a breath.
Grandma, we have to leave, now.
The ballroom shimmered around us, crystal glasses, laughter echoing under golden chandeliers, my son Alex smiling beside his dazzling bride. But at our table, candlelight flickered over Leo's pale face. His red toy car lay forgotten. I bent toward him, heart pounding. "What's wrong, my boy?" His eyes widened, shimmering with a fear no 7-year-old should carry. He whispered, "You didn't look under the table, did you?" The words sliced through me. My hand shook as I lifted the edge of the immaculate white cloth. Darkness yawned beneath, chair legs casting thin shadows. Then I saw it, a scrap of paper folded tight, waiting like a trap beside my grandson's shoes. For a moment, the music and chatter blurred into silence. I crouched, reached with trembling fingers, and pulled it into the light. The note was smudged, hurried, cruelly simple. "Table 8. Add shrimp to the child serving." My breath froze. Shrimp, the very thing that could kill him in minutes. Everyone knew his allergy, yet here it was, written in ink, hidden where only he might stumble across it. Leo pressed against me, trembling so hard I felt his ribs quiver. Around us, guests clapped and laughed, oblivious. To them, this was a wedding. To me, it had just become a battlefield. I crushed the paper in my fist. The silverware rattled as I rose. My voice stuck in my throat, but inside, a storm was building. Someone had tried to turn joy into poison, and I would not sit quietly while my grandson's life hung by a thread. So I ask you, if you uncovered such a note beneath your grandchild's plate, what would you do? If this story grips you, share where you're listening from, and stay with me on Roots and Secrets. Because silence in the face of betrayal is no option at all. I sat back down, the note burning against my palm, trying not to let the fear on my face spill over to Leo. His little hand trembled inside mine, and I forced a smile at the elderly couple beside us, who were still speaking politely, unaware that my world had just cracked open. The jazz band's music swelled, silverware chimed, waiters moved like dancers between tables, but for me, everything blurred. I had discovered proof that someone wanted to poison my grandson, and no one else knew it yet. I looked at Leo, his bow tie slightly crooked from my earlier touch, his wide eyes shimmering with terror. I whispered, "It's okay, my boy. Grandma's here." But inside, I felt the air thin, my chest aching with panic. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The candlelight flickered on the folded paper now crumpled in my fist, its words etched into my mind. Table 8. Add shrimp to the child's serving. My thoughts spiraled back through the years, pulling me into memories I had tried to bury. I saw Maria again. My sweet Maria, the first woman to call me Mom, with genuine warmth. I could almost hear her laugh drifting through the little house in Phoenix, where she and Alex built their early life together. She would stand on the porch with a basket of tomatoes from the garden, the sun catching in her hair, calling me to try the chili she had simmered all afternoon. I loved those evenings when Alex would come home, still young and eager, and Leo, tiny Leo, would crawl across the carpet clutching his toy car. Maria's presence made every ordinary day feel holy. Then the phone call shattered it all. "Mrs. Williams, there has been an accident." My knees nearly gave out. The plate in my hand crashed onto the kitchen floor, shards scattering like pieces of my heart. Maria was gone in an instant, taken by a truck that veered off the highway. At her funeral, rain fell so hard it was as though heaven itself grieved with us. Alex broke down at the coffin, his shoulders shaking in silence. And little Leo, confused, clung to me, asking, "Grandma, where is Mommy?" I lied, telling him she was in a beautiful place, but inside I felt hollow, destroyed. After that, Alex buried himself in work. He would leave before dawn and return after dark, too tired even to speak. Leo retreated into silence, his smile fading into something fragile. I tried to keep him afloat, telling him stories about his mother every night. "She used to sing you lullabies," I whispered. "She used to cut your fruit into little stars." Each memory was my way of keeping Maria alive, for him and for myself. Lucy, my adopted daughter, became a lifeline for us both. With her clear laugh and gentle patience, she colored with Leo, baked cookies, and sat for hours helping him with his drawings. I sometimes caught her gazing at Alex with a depth that unsettled me. I stayed silent, unwilling to fracture what little harmony remained. Then came Ava. The first night Alex brought her home, I was cooking chili again. He leaned against the doorway, his voice trembling with a strange brightness. "Mom, I want you to meet someone." His eyes glowed in a way I hadn't seen since Maria. I dried my hands and braced myself. Ava stepped in, elegant in a light blue dress, her hair perfect, her smile rehearsed. She praised my house, studied the family photos on the wall, her gaze lingering on Maria's image longer than I liked. At dinner, she offered Leo a chocolate bar with a too bright grin. "Here, it's delicious." But Leo stiffened, gripping his fork, then turned away. Alex scolded him gently, and I intervened. "He's just tired." I should have listened to that moment, that instinct rising in my chest. Instead, I smothered it. There were so many signs. Ava humming cheerfully while washing dishes, as if auditioning for approval. Ava crouching beside Leo, praising his drawing while his body went rigid. The afternoon I overheard her snap, "Stay still, don't make a mess," before changing her tone to syrup when I appeared. Each incident I brushed aside, telling myself she just didn't understand children yet. Leo knew better. His 7th birthday revealed it. Lucy arrived with a chocolate cake, candles glowing. Leo's face lit up with joy I hadn't seen in months. He hugged Lucy tightly, his little voice bright. "This is my favorite cake." Ava clapped politely from a corner, her smile forced, her gift nothing more than a pat on his shoulder and a hollow, "Happy birthday, champ." Leo shrank from her touch. My throat tightened, but again, I swallowed my protest. Even his teacher noticed. She pulled me aside one afternoon, worry clouding her face. "Mrs. Williams, Leo has been so withdrawn lately. Is something happening at home?" I waved it off, saying it was just the changes. But on the way home, Leo tugged my sleeve, his eyes pleading. "Grandma, I don't want to go home with Miss Ava." I knelt down and stroked his hair. "She loves you." Even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were false. His little head shook firmly. "No, Grandma, she doesn't." The certainty in his voice was sharper than any accusation. Still, I stayed silent. And so the wedding day arrived. The Florida sun spilled golden light across the ballroom. White roses adorned every table. Alex beamed in his navy suit, looking reborn. Ava shimmered in beads, her laughter high and constant, her glass of wine always full. To the guests, it was a day of celebration. But then Leo's toy car slipped from his hand, rolled under the table, and with it, the fragile illusion I had clung to. He bent to retrieve it, froze, and surfaced with a folded scrap of paper that made his small face go pale. "Grandma, let's go," he begged, eyes wide. Then the words that stabbed through me. "You didn't look under the table, did you?" I bent down, lifted the cloth, and saw it for myself. That note, smudged ink on cheap paper, carrying the weight of death. Now, as I sat holding it, my knuckles white, I looked across the ballroom. Ava raised her glass, her perfect smile tightening just enough for me to notice. Her eyes flicked toward us, and in that instant, I understood. She was not a mistake. She was a threat. And my silence could no longer protect my grandson. I rose from my chair so suddenly that the silverware rattled and the white tablecloth slid half an inch. The noise cut through the music, through the hum of conversation, through the clinking glasses. My chair scraped back on the polished floor like a scream. Dozens of heads turned. Candlelight shimmered over startled faces, wine glasses frozen midair. The folded paper trembled in my hand, damp with the sweat of fear and fury. My throat ached as though I had swallowed fire, but my voice, when it came, was steady enough to carve the air. "One moment. Before anyone eats, I need to speak." The band faltered, the last notes of the saxophone hanging awkwardly before dying in silence. The ballroom, a heartbeat ago a swirl of laughter and light, froze in tableau. Every eye seemed to bore into me, though all I could feel was the fragile body of my grandson pressed close against my side. Leo's face was pale, his small red toy car forgotten on the table, his hand clutching Lucy's sleeve. His eyes begged me not to falter. I drew a breath. This note was hidden beneath our table. It instructs someone to add shrimp to the child's plate. My voice cracked, but I forced it to rise. "My grandson is deathly allergic. A single bite could kill him." Gasps swelled across the hall, whispers colliding like a rising tide. A woman near the back pressed her hand to her chest. Another man frowned, leaning forward as if to snatch the paper from me himself. Confusion rippled, disbelief, shock. I extended the crumpled note toward my son. "Alex, read it." He strode across the room, his navy suit catching shards of light. The smile that had lived on his face all day was gone, erased in an instant. He took the paper with shaking fingers. I saw his eyes dart over the words, his lips moving silently, his throat working, his face drained of color. What is this?" His voice broke. "Mom, what does this mean?" Before I could answer, Ava's perfume reached me, sharp as lilies left too long in stagnant water. She glided forward in her shimmering gown, every bead catching the chandeliers. Her face was composed, her smile faint, but her eyes betrayed the tiniest flicker of panic. "This has to be a joke," she said, laugh brittle, hands raised as though calming a child. "A bad prank on a happy day. Who would do something so cruel at a wedding?" A few guests nodded, eager for reassurance, but others frowned. The brittle edge in her laugh, the too smooth dismissal, it rang false. I locked my gaze on her. "This is not a joke." My voice carried more steel than I felt. "Someone tried to murder my grandson." The word murder sliced the air. People shifted in their seats, whispers flared louder. An elderly uncle muttered, "Good Lord." Leo whimpered, burying his face against Lucy. My adopted daughter's arm tightened protectively around him. Her face flushed with fury, her eyes bright with tears she refused to shed. "Enough, Ava," she whispered. Then louder, trembling with rage, "Enough!" Before I could move, Lucy stepped forward. Her hand swung with the certainty of a verdict. The slap rang like a whip crack across the ballroom. Ava staggered, her hand flying to her cheek, her glittering mask shattered. A collective gasp rose, followed by the thrum of voices breaking loose. Tears welled instantly in her eyes as she turned toward Alex. "You see? She's insane with jealousy. She's attacking me without cause. I've done nothing but love this family." Lucy's voice, shaking but sharp as glass, cut through the uproar. "You wanted to poison Leo. You slipped this note, planned this horror on your own wedding day." "No!" Ava shrieked. Her voice cracked, her hands trembling at her sides. "Why would I ever—" And then, from the corner, another voice cracked open the chaos. Gloria. She was barely 18, her dress too loose on her fragile frame, mascara streaking her cheeks. She shoved her chair back so hard it toppled. Standing on quaking legs, she cried, "It wasn't my idea! Ava gave me the paper. She told me to pass it to the waiter. I swear I didn't know what it said." The ballroom gasped again, louder, sharper, almost physical. Dozens of eyes swung toward Ava. "No!" Ava shrieked again, her voice rising, hands reaching toward her sister. "You liar! How dare you betray me! Gloria, stop this nonsense!" But Gloria's tears streamed freely, her words tumbling out in sobs. "I didn't know! I didn't! You said it was important! You said it was for the kitchen!" The crowd exploded in murmurs. A man in the front row shook his head in horror. "Dear God, the child could have died." Alex turned, paper still in his hand, his body trembling as if his bones might splinter. "Ava, is this true?" His voice cracked, laden with disbelief and something worse, hope. She tried to smile, lips quivering, teeth clenched too tightly. "Of course not. You don't believe them, do you?" But the guests were shifting, their gazes sharpening. Some shook their heads, others glared openly. Lucy clutched Leo close, her voice steady and cutting. "If you keep denying, we'll check the security cameras. Every corner of this room is covered. Do you really want the truth on screen for everyone to see?" The room fell into a stillness so thick it was suffocating. Ava's face blanched. Her lips parted, but no sound emerged. For one suspended moment, even the chandeliers seemed to dim, as if the whole hall held its breath. I slammed my palm onto the table. Glasses jumped, plates rattled, candles flickered. "Enough!" Then I beckoned to the young waiter hovering near the wall. "David, come here." He froze, then walked forward, his hands twisting nervously in his apron. His eyes darted from me to Ava, back to me. I thrust the note at him. "Did you receive this?" His Adam's apple bobbed. Yes, ma'am. A woman gave it to me. I dropped it while carrying a tray." "Which woman?" I demanded. His eyes flicked, unwilling. He whispered. "She was sitting at the front, next to the groom." The room hissed with a collective intake of breath. Guests turned. Alex's hands tightened around the note until it crumpled further. Ava lunged forward, her voice shrill, ragged. "He's mistaken! He doesn't know what he's saying! You can't trust him, he's just a waiter!" But then Gloria sobbed again, collapsing to her knees, her words strangled. "It was you, Ava! You asked me! You made me!" A roar of voices surged through the crowd. Some shouted in disbelief, others in fury. A woman muttered, "How could anyone stoop so low?" A man slammed his fist against the table. "A child at your own wedding." Alex staggered back, face ashen. He looked from me to Leo to the woman he had just vowed to love. His hands shook so badly the note nearly slipped from his grip. "My son," he whispered, his voice hollow. "My God, my son." Leo whimpered again, and Lucy bent over him, her arms a shield. His small hand reached for mine, his eyes wide and wet with terror. I steadied him, steadied myself, and looked straight at Ava. Her perfect smile was gone. Her painted lips quivered. Her hands trembled at her sides. The beads of her gown glittered under the chandeliers like shards of glass from a broken mirror. The ballroom was no longer a celebration. It was a court. And judgment was only beginning. The ballroom seethed with noise, yet I felt alone at the center of it. Whispers crashed like waves against the walls, and eyes, dozens, maybe hundreds, bored into me from every direction. Some glistened with sympathy, others with doubt. A few, already weary of scandal, narrowed as though I had been the one to poison the night. Alex stood beside me, frozen. His face was pale, his lips parted as though he wanted to speak, but couldn't. He clutched the note in his trembling hand like a man drowning who had found a scrap of wood. His eyes darted from me to Ava, and my heart ached with the cruel knowledge that he was torn between mother, son, and wife. "Alex," Ava whispered, her voice jagged with sobs that slid too easily into performance. She staggered toward him, her gown glittering, her painted face streaked with tears that somehow fell without smudging her perfect mascara. She grabbed his wrist. "Please, you know me. You know I would never harm Leo. They're all trying to ruin us. Don't let them destroy our wedding day." Her plea pierced me. Not because I believed it, every fiber in me screamed that she was lying, but because I saw Alex hesitate. For a heartbeat, the weight of appearances, of guests, of public shame pressed heavier than the truth. The crowd watched, some leaning forward, hungry for drama, others shaking their heads. A cousin muttered loud enough for me to hear. "She's an old woman, blinded by grief. Maybe she imagined it." The words struck like stones. My cheeks burned. I wanted to shout that I was not imagining anything, that the paper was real, the threat deadly, but my throat closed. For a terrifying moment, doubt crept in. Would they side with her? Would I become the hysterical grandmother, ruining her son's happiness? I nearly faltered. My knees trembled, and I gripped the table's edge to steady myself. Then I felt a tug on my sleeve. Leo. His little face, wet with tears, pressed into Lucy's shoulder. His small hand reached for me. "Grandma," he whispered, his voice raw with fear. "Don't let her." The strength of that plea jolted me back. Lucy, standing tall though her hands shook, turned her fierce eyes on Ava. "If you're innocent, let's check the security footage. Every hallway, every corner. There's a camera. The truth won't hide." Gasps erupted again, sharper this time. A few guests nodded. One man in the back shouted, "Yes, let's see the cameras!" Another chimed, "That will settle it." Ava's mask cracked further. She shook her head wildly, her earrings swaying. "No, that's absurd. Who even knows if those cameras work? Anyone could have planted that note to humiliate me." Her protest only deepened the murmur of suspicion. I saw relatives exchange glances, some already convinced, others clinging to their disbelief. The tide was turning, but the storm raged. "Mom!" Alex's voice broke through, hoarse, trembling. He turned to me, desperation clouding his eyes. "Please, tell me this isn't what it looks like. Tell me you're not wrong." The words pierced deeper than Ava's lies ever could. My own son, begging me to doubt myself. For a moment, I swayed, as though my heart had been cut open. "I'm not wrong," I whispered, my voice shaking but firming with each syllable. "Leo's life was in danger. That note is proof." Leo clung tighter to Lucy, who whispered to him, "It's okay, love. I'm here. Grandma's here." She stroked his hair, her face a shield of defiance and tenderness. The murmurs swelled again, but for the first time since standing up, I felt a spark inside me, a flame struggling against the wind. Ava, realizing the crowd was slipping away, raised her voice, desperate now. "This is jealousy! This is bitterness! She can't stand to see her son happy again. That's why she's attacking me. Can't you see it?" Her words stung because some in the crowd nodded, as though her narrative soothed their discomfort. I wanted to scream. But Lucy stepped forward, her chin lifted, her voice cutting through. "No, this is about Leo. This is about a boy's life nearly stolen by cruelty. Don't twist it into envy. Don't you dare." The silence that followed was heavy. I saw even Alex flinch at the sharp truth in her tone. For a moment, Ava stood trembling, her face twisted, her eyes darting as though searching for one last escape, but there was none. I looked down at Leo, at the child whose very existence tethered me to strength. I thought of Maria, of the promise I made long ago to always protect him. The weight of doubt, of whispers, of Ava's venom, all of it pressed down. But beneath it, I felt the flame steady itself. I straightened, my back aching but unbowed, and spoke clearly. Whoever tries to harm my grandson will never have a place in this family. The words rang like iron. Some guests gasped, others murmured approval, and though the storm had not passed, though Ava still stood trembling in her gown, though Alex's eyes were wet with confusion, I knew one thing. I was no longer silent. For the first time that night, I stood on my own feet, not just for myself, but for Leo, for the truth. I could feel the note trembling between my fingers as though it were alive, though the ink was already smeared from my grip. Around me, the ballroom had become a furnace of stares, whispers, and rising heat. Every chandelier sparkled too brightly, every polished plate too reflective, as if the room itself had turned against me. Ava stood only a few feet away, her gown glittering with every desperate movement. She raised her chin and forced a brittle smile. "Do you hear yourselves?" she said, voice pitched to cut through the murmurs. "This is absurd. A jealous foster daughter, a grieving old woman, and some clumsy waiter. This is the great conspiracy against me?" Her laughter came thin, like glass cracking under pressure. A few guests chuckled nervously, not out of conviction, but to ease their own discomfort. Yet most faces darkened, brows furrowed, lips tightened. Lucy clutched Leo tighter, her beige dress rumpled where his little fists dug into her shoulders. "Stop talking about jealousy," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "Talk about this paper. Talk about why Gloria broke down in tears and said you gave it to her." Gloria, still near the toppled chair, sobbed uncontrollably. Mascara streaked down her face, her hair clung to her wet cheeks. "I didn't know," she cried, voice breaking. "She just told me to give it to the waiter. She said it was important. I thought it was for the kitchen. I didn't know what it said." Ava whirled on her sister, her hands clenched in fists, eyes blazing. "You liar!" she shrieked. "How dare you betray me here, in front of everyone? You always envied me. You'd do anything to drag me down." "No," Gloria shouted back, startling even herself. "I loved you. I looked up to you, but you told me to hand it over. You did." Her body convulsed with sobs. The guests stirred like a restless sea. A man at table 3 slapped the table so hard his wine glass toppled, red liquid bleeding across the white cloth. "A child's life! Enough of this filth!" A woman across the aisle clutched her pearls, shaking her head. "Unbelievable! On a wedding day!" My heart pounded so hard I thought it might split my chest, but I gripped the note higher, lifting it where the chandelier's light struck the words. "This isn't imagination. This is evidence. And if anyone still doubts, there are cameras in this ballroom. We can see who passed it, who nodded, who plotted." The murmurs turned sharp, like knives. "Yes, the cameras!" someone shouted from the back. "Show the truth!" Another voice, louder. "Let's end this right now." Ava staggered backward, her glittering train dragging behind her like chains. "No! That's ridiculous! You think cameras catch everything? Anyone could have planted this note. They're framing me because they hate me, because I'm not Maria." The name cut through the air like a blade. Gasps followed. Lucy stiffened, her face white with fury. "Don't speak her name tonight," she said in a low, dangerous tone. "Don't you dare." I stepped forward, my eyes locked on Ava's. "Maria was light. You are shadow. Do not twist her memory." The ballroom fell silent for a beat, as though even the chandeliers held their breath. Then David, the waiter, trembling but resolute, stepped from the corner. His white shirt was rumpled, his hands still stained with wine.
She's lying.
he said, his voice cracking but clear.
That girl, Gloria, gave me the note, and I saw her look at Ava. Ava nodded at her. I thought it was just routine, but I remember. I swear it.
The roar that followed was deafening. Guests shouted over each other, some demanding Ava leave immediately, others calling for the police. An older uncle slammed his cane against the floor.
This is attempted murder,
he declared, his voice shaking with rage. Ava's face contorted. She spun in frantic circles, searching the crowd for support, but none came. Even her bridesmaids stood stiff, their painted smiles gone, their eyes wide with horror. Alex staggered toward her, his face ashen. He held the note like it might burn him.
You tried to hurt my son? On our wedding day?
His voice cracked, raw with disbelief and grief. Ava's mouth opened, lips trembling. For a heartbeat, I thought she might confess, but instead she spat. No, I didn't! They're twisting everything. This is their plan to ruin us, because they never wanted me in this family. Her gaze locked on me, venomous. You can't stand to see Alex happy again. That's why you're doing this. The words stabbed, but I did not flinch. This isn't about happiness. This is about Leo's life, and you tried to steal it. Lucy, her voice rising above the storm, shouted. She admitted it. She said Leo was always in the way. She said nothing was enough with him here. Gasps tore through the crowd. She said that? A woman exclaimed. About a child? Leo whimpered, pressing his face into Lucy's shoulder. My heart broke at the sound, but I stood tall, refusing to let Ava's poison win. Alex dropped the note, his hands shaking violently. He buried his face in them, sobbing openly now.
Why, Ava? Why?
Her voice cracked, shrill with desperation. Because you never looked at me the way you looked at her? Because nothing I did was enough with him. Your precious boy, always in the middle. The confession was a knife across the room. Silence followed, heavy, suffocating. Then chaos. Guests shouted in fury. Some rose from their chairs. Others stepped back as though afraid to breathe the same air.
One man roared, "Get her out!"
Another woman wept, murmuring prayers under her breath. Alex turned, his face streaked with tears, his voice hoarse. Take her away! I can't bear it! Not another second! 2 hotel security guards appeared at the edges of the hall, summoned silently. Their dark uniforms cast sharp shadows against the glowing roses and gleaming silver. They stepped forward, firm but calm.
Ma'am, please come with us.
Ava thrashed, her gown dragging like chains across the floor. No! Alex, you know me! You love me! Don't let them! But Alex turned his back. The guards each took one of her arms. She shrieked, struggling, her glittering earrings swinging wildly. You'll regret this. She spat at me, her face twisted, tears streaking her cheeks. You think you've won, but you haven't. Her words echoed, hollow, as they dragged her toward the great doors. The crowd parted, guests stepping aside, their faces a mixture of disgust and relief. Some shook their heads, others whispered fiercely. Monstrous. How could anyone do that? That poor boy. The ballroom doors closed behind her with a thunderous finality. Silence fell. Not peace, never peace, but silence heavy enough to smother. Alex collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands, sobbing like a man who had lost more than he could name. Guests shifted uneasily, whispering, unwilling to look at him directly. The roses on every table seemed to droop, the candles guttered low. I looked down at Leo, still trembling in Lucy's arms, his toy car clutched tight in his fist. My heart swelled with love and fury both. I brushed his hair back gently, whispering, It's over, my boy. She can't hurt you now. But even as I said it,
I knew it wasn't true. The night was far from over. Ava's venom still lingered in the air, and the cracks in my family had only just begun to show. The night ended not with music or dancing, but with silence broken by muffled sobs. When the ballroom doors closed behind Ava, it was as if the chandeliers themselves dimmed, ashamed to witness what had unfolded beneath their glow. Guests scattered in uneasy groups, some rushing to collect their coats, others lingering in whispers. No one touched the main course. The plates of meat, the shrimp platter, the untouched wine, all of it sat cold and abandoned, like props left behind in a theater when the curtain falls. I sat beside Leo, smoothing his hair as he clung to his toy car. His little hand trembled in mine. Lucy never let go of him, her arm around his shoulders like a shield forged from love. Across the table, Alex collapsed, his head buried in his palms. The sight of my son, once so radiant in his navy suit, reduced to a hollow silhouette, tore at me. I wanted to reach for him, but I stayed with Leo. My grandson's heartbeat, fluttering against my palm, was the only rhythm I could trust in that poisoned hall. When we finally left, the air outside was heavy and damp. The Florida night wrapped around us with the scent of wet roses and extinguished candles. Hotel staff moved quickly, clearing away the fragments of what was meant to be a celebration. The music never resumed. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire. Family called, neighbors whispered, relatives across the country phoned with questions I did not want to answer. Is it true? How could she? What will Alex do now? Each call was a wound reopened. Inside our home, silence became our companion. Alex no longer wore the mask of a happy groom. He drove Leo to school and picked him up in silence, his eyes avoiding mine, his shoulders stooped. At night, I heard him pacing, his footsteps heavy as though dragging chains. The name Ava was never spoken again. It hung in the air like smoke after a fire, poisonous, lingering, but unacknowledged. Leo, poor boy, carried the deepest scars. He became wary of voices too sweet, of hands reaching too quickly. At meals, he pushed shrimp platters far away, even when none were intended for him. Sometimes he woke at night, crying softly, whispering, "Grandma, don't let her come back." I would hold him until his breathing steadied, stroking his hair, whispering that he was safe, though a part of me feared my promise was too fragile. But Lucy, my adopted daughter, my unexpected blessing, became the balm that soothed his soul. Every morning she packed his lunch with care, writing little notes on napkins. "Have a bright day." "You're braver than you think." Sometimes she drew smiling suns or tiny kites. Leo would beam when he opened them, and for those moments, light returned to his eyes. In the afternoons, I watched from the porch as Lucy took him to the park. She taught him how to fly a kite, running across the grass with the string cutting the blue sky, her laughter echoing. When Leo stumbled or fell, she picked him up gently, brushed off the dirt, kissed his cheek, and sent him running again. Slowly, his laughter returned, hesitant at first, then fuller, until one evening it rang clear across the yard. One night, when he fell ill with a fever, I found Lucy sitting by his bed. She placed cool cloths on his forehead, whispering a story about a sparrow that braved a storm. Her voice was steady, her hands tender. I stood at the door, tears stinging my eyes, as Alex watched too. His gaze lingered on her, complex. Gratitude, remorse, something deeper he dared not name. Weeks passed, then months. Slowly, life stitched itself back together, though the seams were visible. One evening, during a rare family dinner, Leo suddenly looked up from his pasta and said in a soft but steady voice, "I want Aunt Lucy to be my mommy." The words silenced us. Lucy's cheeks flushed crimson, her hands trembling around her spoon. Alex froze, tears welling instantly. My heart clenched, not with pain, but with fragile hope. I reached across the table, touched Alex's hand, and said quietly, "True happiness, son, doesn't come from glittering gowns or grand halls. It comes from a heart that loves without pretense." His eyes met mine, then drifted to Lucy. For the first time since that cursed wedding, I saw a spark of light flicker in his gaze. Time carried Ava away like a toxic wind. She vanished from our conversations, from our days, from our lives. What remained was the fragile but growing bond between Alex, Leo, Lucy, and me. I often found myself at the window late at night, watching the moon stretch silver light across our quiet street. On the lawn, the kite that Lucy and Leo flew sometimes still lay tangled in the grass, its string glinting faintly. It reminded me that though storms can tear, the sky still opens for flight. I understood something then. Family is not only blood. Family is choice, sacrifice, and love that shows itself in actions, not words. Maria had been light, lost too soon. Ava had been shadow, unmasked too late. But Lucy, though not born of my blood, carried the fire that healed what shadow tried to destroy. Life will never erase the scars. The memory of that note, the trembling of Leo's hand, the betrayal written across my son's wedding day, they remain etched in me. But I no longer let them own me. Instead, I carry them as reminders of vigilance, of courage, of the price of silence. To you listening now, I ask, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have swallowed the truth to keep the peace? Or would you have risked everything to protect the innocent? Sometimes a small gesture, the lifting of a tablecloth, the reading of a hidden note, can save a life. Sometimes courage is not loud, it is steady. I share this not to judge, but to remind. Betrayal can wear a dazzling gown. Cruelty can smile like a bride. But love, when true, reveals itself in the quiet constancy of care. A packed lunch, a cool cloth on a fevered brow, a kite string guided by patient hands. Family is not always given. Sometimes it is chosen. And it is in those choices that we find salvation. So I leave you with this. Love with vigilance, protect with courage, and never let silence shield cruelty. If this story touched you, tell me where you are listening from. Share your thoughts, and if you believe in voices that dare to confront betrayal, stay with us here on Roots and Secrets, because together, by telling and hearing, we make sure darkness never has the last word.